All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Witt, a live taping of One Witt Films, episode number 69. Nice, Princess. K, you're up.
All right. Well, after that intro, who needs mine? All right. So, what happens when a horror film defies so many conventions, hires Nicolas Cage, and decides to make the devil make me do it? Well, you get Longlegs. Now, picture this. Shoving Legos into your sock and then doing a 5K. Playing hopscotch in a minefield. Ziplining over a large canyon. On a licorice rope.
Hmm.
All of these things are less tense than the movie I just watched. Now, I gotta say, we took a little bit of a break and came back with one hell of an entry, if you know what I'm saying. Have you been saying your prayers? And if so, for what? Because a lot of shit's been going weird. So I'm starting to think somebody's getting what they wished for.
Trump.
And I don't know if I like this person anymore. And, you know, well, I mean, I've never liked him. Well, we'll get to that. But now the thing is that speaking of hell, I don't want to talk ill of my future home, so let's stoke some fires and cross them wires.
Nice
okay, popping tires and getting higher. Ouija me stoked, it's K. And now, well, my dear friends, as they often say, the devil made me do it, but this time it's just a devilishly handsome chap. Look at this man. He's up at like 3 a.m. in the morning, looking pretty as can be. Look how pretty Naf is today. Naf, give the camera a little kiss. Give the camera a little kiss. There we are. Beautiful.
3 a.m. in the morning as opposed to 3 a.m. in the afternoon, or?
No. 3 a.m. in the morning. You heard me. Okay. Now say something to the people, Naf, that's kind.
If you ever feel like everybody hates you, remember, you probably hate yourself more.
There we are. And now, and with us today is someone I have some selective choice words for. Most of them would get us demonetized and demonized, but then again, so would this film. He is a former friend of the show and a turncoat. He makes me scared to sleep in the dark now, and I don't think I can appreciate a sunset anymore. Like I said during my watch along, fuck this shit, put it away. No, oh God, why? Bale, I got a lot to say to you. Bale, you're gonna get son of a bitch. Anyway,
Bale's gonna get what?
Appropriate response.
Well, listen, here's the Fit Brit. Get ready for some tales with Bale, because we got Grandmaster Bale for the first and last time on this show.
Probably.
So, would you like to introduce yourself, bud?
Hello, I'm Bale. I'm on the internet occasionally, and yeah, we're gonna talk about Longlegs. Yeah, I'm on many different places.
Hell
Not
yeah.
usually talk about horror, to be fair.
This is a different
really
space for you, isn't it?
It is a very different space to me. Devil worshipping movies usually aren't my area of expertise, but I'm taking a foray into it.
You gotta try anything twice.
Tell you what, man, like I built my entire brand on like worshipping devil women, so like this is it. This is my bread and butter.
I imagine it's very
really
similar.
Naf's bag, is what he's saying. Like this is really like Naf has been preparing his whole life for this moment.
Every woman I've ever loved, I look at her and Satan is in the background in a window, and I'm like, that's the one. That's the one.
It's like that. It's like that meme where it's like, you know, whenever you get a little too comfortable in life, the devil sends a girl with 2 A's in her name, and just kind of
one of those right now.
Exactly. And so,
but nonetheless, you, baby.
As a reminder that you can find One with the Films on any podcasting platform of choice, as well as live and on demand right here. And if you are live in the chat, feel free to join the conversation. We always love to hear from you, and you're listening on demand. Don't worry, we still love you, just a little less.
Hell yeah.
And that being said, Naf, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we're doing today?
Yeah, baby, we are back for an episode of the Weekly Watch List. And the Weekly Watch List is what happens when a bunch of friends with unique and wonderful taste in films have tried too hard for too long to finally share and discuss their favorite films with one another. It came about by me begging Kay to watch a bunch of my favorite movies, and then he was like, yeah, I'll get to them, and I said, hey, we should start a film podcast. And all of a sudden, in 3 years, man's watched like 100 of my favorite films. It's Cheat code,
It's
guys.
true.
Cheat code. This is how
Good way
you
of
get your
doing it.
friends to watch it.
It also is a great way to introduce your buddy to Steven Spielberg movies when he's like, all I've watched is like Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones. And
Hadn't
I'm
even
like,
watched Indiana
"Oh,
Jones at that time. It was just
shit, you're
Jurassic
right."
Park, and it was all the Jurassic Parks and the Terminal.
Which was like, so what you're telling
Still
me
one
is
of my
the only
favorite
Steven
Spielberg
Spielberg films The Terminal?
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that. I've
Yeah,
actually
I don't know if
never
I've
seen
even
the
watched
I've
that.
actually never seen The Terminal, so I can't
Oh.
speak on it.
Oh,
And so
I love
I
that
didn't
movie.
recognize the name.
It has a very young Zoe Saldana and Diego Luna in it.
That's true.
In like a what is it, like a meet cute B plot, which is beautiful.
which I'm fine with.
But yeah. Well, back to my point around the weekly watch list. If you're uninitiated, the idea is that for every episode, at least one person is watching the chosen film for the first time. It's all about having space for creators to share the art that matters most to them and give them a space and platform to tell us all why. So if you guys like listening to a bunch of nerds geek out and force each other to watch and then discuss their favorite films for the very first time, feel free to follow or subscribe. Send us to your friends, and if you like, you can activate notifications so you never miss a new episode. And of course, we're on all your favorite socials as well, so links are in the description below. Now, today's episode 69 of the podcast. Nice. And it's a very
Nice.
special episode as well, because this is actually the last feature guest episode that we've got for this season. We're coming into the last couple. We're going to do, similar to last year, a bit of like our Oscars roundup, our kind of top 10 of the year, and then coming into the one with the filmies. But Bale, congratulations. You're our last guest for the
thank you.
year. How do you feel?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for
And
having
you
me.
weren't originally our last guest, but then we watched this movie and we were like, we're never letting anyone recommend us anything ever again.
we said we're
Good
done
reason.
after this, and it just said and Bale, I will say you also I think set another record for this podcast of I think you're the first person to recommend a movie so close to its release to the podcast actually coming out. Like you have the one that's the closest to actually having been released in the year like that that preceded it, like
That would be
up till
pretty
now.
good.
So because you're the only, because everybody else has recommended those films that at least have been like several years older than the podcast episode airing. So this is a really cool thing. A great way. You literally what was it?
The other one would be Past Lives, but I think this is closer.
Shit, I guess
No,
Past Lives
that
and
came out
Same
recently
Year.
as well, didn't it?
yeah. So I think that Past Lives and this, I guess, yeah.
But Past
still-
Lives was 2023 as well.
I'm gonna give it to Bale, mainly to stick it to Johnny, but I'll give it to Bale. And so,
Johnny doesn't mind.
exactly. Like I know Tate was also there, but I'm not gonna stick it to Tate. Tate's cool. And so
I was
now,
there as well.
like, were you?
Yeah. Kind of my
okay.
show.
Yeah, well,
Crazy. I recommended you the film. If it's the whole thing.
Well, it was just funny because Tate was talking to me so much about Past Lives, and I was just like, I got to see it now, and and you were just like, you kind of just jumped on the bandwagon there, and I was like, that's pretty
Okay.
cool.
Okay, mate. Okay. I'm pretty sure I
For
called you.
for our autistic listeners out there, of course, Naf did recommend it to me first, and I'm just giving him shit.
I was gonna say,
but nonetheless.
I could have sworn that I called you from the car after I watched that movie. Like, sat in the car for like 4 hours, contemplating my entire life choices up to that point.
That
And I was
would
like,
not limit it. That would not
I'm
like
struggling.
limit the list. It's just it was just one of many.
Now,
Now,
that's a good movie.
I mean, it was a great movie. Now,
Yeah.
nonetheless, what movie are we talking about? Naf, do you want to lead Bale in?
Yeah. So Bale, why didn't you hit us, big man? Like, what is a brilliant film that not enough people have seen?
Honestly, I might just go with Longlegs. Mainly because I think it was an indie-esque horror release. It wasn't a massive thing, I don't think.
I do have some
granted,
interesting facts on that when we get to it as well.
Might be
which
wrong,
is really
but-
cool.
Yeah,
Um,
mainly because I think the way I ended up watching this was just a friend was like, I saw this cool trailer for this movie. We should go watch it. I was like, yeah, all right. I watched it and I was like, oh my god, that was actually incredible.
Was it like directly after watching it that you
yeah.
messaged me going, I finally have a movie for you? Or was it a little bit of time in between?
I think my memory is terrible, but I think
Fair.
it might have been, because you guys were, you'd asked me before, and I'll be completely honest, my movie taste is very generic. in that if I suggest a movie, 9 times out of 10, someone's probably already seen it. But I think because this has came up so recently, I was like, there is a good shot. I don't think Kiernan and Naf have watched this. So,
And you were right.
yeah.
So do you have an elevator pitch for this film? Like, can you tell me in one sentence why you chose this film?
Oh, I mean, I think the kind of generic approach to this would be in a trench coat with it kind of tucked down the middle and go, "Hey man, you like some weird shit?" And then just whipping it out. But I think there's no
Clip
other
that,
really
clip that, guys, clip that. Just Bale being like, out of context.
You like some
weird shit.
That's shown in the trailer. And
I love the out of context Bale just being like, I'm in a trench coat. I look at someone and go, do you like some weird shit? Now whip it out. Like, just...
For context.
No. We're not doing that.
Not
We're
a phallus.
Contextless as always.
It's a film. Kate, I'd love to know, what did you know about this film before going into it?
Well, like as Bale was saying, like I think Bale, you caught it probably as it was coming out because, like, at least my way, like it was people were like, I saw like a trailer, I heard the name, or I don't even think I saw the trailer. I just heard the name of the movie and people talking about it. But it was kind of in a similar way to Barbarian, where it was like it went from being like a name. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people were talking about it, but it was a very word of mouth type movie where it was a very much like people like, oh my God, you got to go see Longlegs. Oh my God. And then for a little bit, I stopped because like a friend of mine saw it and he was like, I liked it, but there were certain aspects that he wasn't a huge fan of. And I was like, okay, like that kind of put it a little bit on the back burner for me for a second, being like, because horror is a mixed bag for me. I'm like, I'm getting much more into the genre, but for a while I was building it up in my head that it was going to be way too scary for me. And then now I'm like, oh, what are people talking about? This is not as half as scary as I thought. This one, on the other hand, was definitely one that I was. So Naf, I will say that like I had heard of it. I knew Nicolas Cage was in it, and I thought it had something to do about the devil. That was all I kind of knew.
That's a perfect amount knowing going into it, I think. That's a good amount. Perfect.
Where it was like, and I knew that people there it was like gaining a lot of word of mouth. That was about it. But what about you, bud?
For me, it was like I generally stay on top of a lot of films coming out in the new years. Like I'm very actively searching for, I'm waiting for things and going, when that comes to theaters, I'm going to go and see it. And this was one that had a lot of really good word of mouth, and I was really excited to see it. I was a little worried because it kind of got to this point where, like, do you guys remember when Saltburn came out and everybody was like, oh my God, you have to go watch Saltburn. It's like the craziest thing ever. It's so crazy. And then everybody went and watched it and they were like, it's not that crazy. And then they were like, well, we hate it now because it's not as crazy as everyone told us it was going to be. Longlegs had that same kind of trajectory where it went from nobody talking about it to everyone talking about it and going, it's the freakiest thing you've ever seen. Then everybody going and watching it and being, it's not that bad. It's actually kind of like a shit movie. And it kind of went like up and down. And I was like, I'm annoyed that I'm in like the film commentary space because I'm tired of hearing all of that, you know? It's always the way that something comes out and some people are like, it's amazing. And then either I go and see it when I'm told it's amazing and it doesn't quite hit the highs for me, or it comes back down and I'm listening to people being like, it's not that good. And, you know, basically the internet's like film literacy and media literacy is just dead. So I'm actually really glad that I put a pause on it and I didn't watch it until now, because I feel like I missed a lot of that. Where there were a few films like last year and the year before that I kind of caught in the top end of the spike. And I remember like even like speaking to Kay and going, everyone's loved this film. And even Kay's calling me like, yeah, man, like the hype. And then I get in and I'm like, nah, it's overhyped. And not to say something was bad, it's just like I'm through the roof expectations. It's impossible to to what's the word, impress me, you know, because like
and you are talking about Dune 2, right, Naf? You are talking about
Dune 2. I was off the internet from the second that movie got any sort of release.
No, for sure.
Until I went and saw it.
funnily enough, with Dune 2, I hadn't even watched the first one. I just saw loads of good things about the second one. I was like, I'll watch the first one. And then I watched the second one. I was like, this is the best movie I have ever watched.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
I loved it.
It's not the best until you've seen
sure.
the compiled 1 and 2 together, 5 hours.
I haven't seen the NAF cut. I've got to watch the NAF cut.
It's heartbreaking.
But going back very, very briefly to what you were saying about the horror thing, I think a lot of that was down, from what I remember at the time, it was like a media quote thing in the trailer where it went, "This is the scariest movie ever," and naturally, if you do that, you're going to get a couple of horror fans that
like,
watch every
that
fucking
Serbian
horror
film.
movie.
What are you talking about? It's not even weird.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they'll come up with something super niche that is terrifying because it was recorded back in the 70s where it was okay to just record stuff.
Just,
and get away with it.
Great point. Where this was fine.
Yeah. Murder someone on camera, sure. Slap label it. Theaters.
We actually killed a person. That was fine. They had no issue. You're absolutely correct. But Bale, you were saying you didn't know much at all when you saw this movie. It just was the trailer.
No. Yeah, I think it was the trailer. I don't even know if it was just that, because I think it literally came about is one of my friends. We were just chatting and we were like, oh, we should do something sometime soon. Is there anything on in the cinema? It's like, oh, there's this one film, Longlegs, that's kind of like a horror-esque kind of movie. And I was like, oh, horror's not really my thing. But you know what? I'll go with the boys. You know, it was that kind of thing. And I came out of that, and there was a letterbox review that I saw of that still sticks with me this day and summarizes the movie perfectly. I shat myself and I felt it running down my long legs. I think that really can perfectly personify
that is correct.
That letterbox review is now equal for me as high as when I left Megalopolis and I walked out. And the top review is, that movie sucked mega cocklets. I also have to butt in here to say, we just got a message in the live chat from Splatterpunk saying, just passing by, and had to mention how hot you all are. So,
hell yeah.
Exactly what we needed. This poster isn't red. That's all of us blushing.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Well, speaking of blushing, Naf, would you like to tell us some blushing fun facts? How's that for a transition?
Is that like a thing that people say?
Well, you thought that other things were sayings too, so.
Yeah, good one, man. Awesome. 10 out of 10.
Got him.
No notes.
Got him.
Okay. Released in theaters in 2024, Dorky David from 2001's Legally Blonde puts away his acting shoes in exchange for writer-director shoes, putting pen to paper with one goal: to horrify. The film stars Maika Monroe, Nicolas Cage, Blair Underwood, and Alicia Witt, and as far as I can tell, it's the very impressive film feature debut of cinematographer Andre Arochi as director of photography. This film became Neon's biggest box office debut, overtaking I, Tonya, and the best launch for an indie horror film in a decade, stealing that record from Insidious Chapter 2. The film cost less than $10 million to make, which it made back on the first day. And supposedly, it cost less than, or essentially single-digit millions to promote. The film had a $23 million opening weekend before grossing $127 million during its box office run. So to math that quickly, we're saying under 20 mil, for everything. And it made back $127 million. Nicolas Cage stated that this is his first and only serial killer performance of his lifetime. He said that he doesn't like violence. He doesn't want to play these kinds of characters, not what he wants to be associated with. But director Osgood Perkins requested that Neon not use Nicolas Cage on the posters or in the trailer, meaning they had to come up with another plan to promote the movie. And I know you have some points on this as well, Bale, but one of them that I saw is that they actually created a phone number that when you called it, it would play messages, pre-recorded messages from Nicolas Cage's character in the film. Yeah, and I will definitely not be calling it ever. Other than Nicolas Cage, Perkins only considered one other actor to play the titular character. Can you guys guess who that might be?
I got nothing.
Brad Pitt.
It's such a weird character.
He wanted Brad Pitt or Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
Those are two choices.
It was also the highest grossing Nicolas Cage film since Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance in 2011.
Damn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and Acres of Movies in chat said hello, and also asked if we reckon director Oz Perkins should make a new Psycho movie. Kay, I'm sure you might have thoughts on that.
Oh, Psycho.
Ooh. Okay, listen. I think Psycho is a masterpiece, and if you thought Acres of Movies, you should check out our Psycho episode. We did that this season as well.
I watched it for the first time. Kay introduced it to me.
Absolutely, one of my favorite films of all time. And but I will say, if they, while I would not want to see a new like a reinterpretation of Psycho, if there were to be, this would be a good person to make it, so long as he found an interesting way to do it and an interesting thing that compelled him. I think it's a great movie that people kind of take for granted.
Did you ever watch the sequel, Kay?
No, I did
2?
not.
I googled Oz Perkins Psycho, and it says that Perkins' first acting role was in Psycho 2, where he played the 12-year-old version of Norman Bates. So another wild fun
so
fact.
it would be keeping it in the family.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
Yeah, let's all go down to the Bates Motel and have a good time. We'll go down to the coast and have some laughs. But before we go any further, all these conversations that we are about to have are not spoiler free. We're not necessarily doing a play-by-play, but we are talking about the film with the expectation that you have already seen it.
Hell yeah, baby.
It's always cool to go and watch the film and check back later. Even if you haven't seen the film, chances are we'll convince you to finally make that leap. And if you want to know what film to watch in advance so you can be prepared for, I guess, in 2 weeks, links are in the descriptions for all of our socials, so check us out there. And if you listen all the way to the end of today's episode, we'll also be revealing our next film and guest right here. So without further ado, let's go.
Hell yeah. So if you're listening on demand or live, first point here is you need to go on your computer or phone or whatever device you have that has access to the internet, and you need to go to thebirthdaymurders.net, okay? And then from there, Bale is going to explain what's going on there.
Oh, yeah. So that is something I, funnily enough, discovered yesterday because I rewatched the movie and I did some Googling about some stuff that I kind of thought about the movie. I was like, I want to check to see if that's accurate. And I found that website. And my God, is there a lot of information on it. Cool. As well as that, from a technical standpoint as well, that was all coded in base HTML so it was coded in a style like they would have probably done around the 90s kind of time, I think.
Yeah.
So it was done really, really well. And also, if you go even further into it, if you go onto the, I have to go back on the site to check. They have at the bottom a bunch of zip files of case documents, all password protected, and they have I only know one of them, one of the passwords, and it's the I Stand by the Sea or something like that, part of the original poem cipher thing he sends to Agent Harker to kind of start decrypting stuff. And it's also got on there a audio snippet called it's something along the lines of the last audio clip of
the last known recording before the voices took over.
That's it, yeah. And which also pairs in quite nicely with the music video, which is unrelated to the website. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Firefly Hiss Hiss.
Firefly Hiss Hiss. No, I don't think so.
No,
so
that's insane.
That gives a little bit more context on the character of Longlegs, about him kind of actually being a rock artist, I think. And I'm pretty sure it's Nick Cage and it's singing. It's not anything that's particularly... I don't think it's got necessarily lyrics set to it. It's quite difficult to discern what the lyrics are on certain points, but it flashes images up throughout it. It's really impressive. And that's kind of why I wanted to tie into just the fact that you said the marketing budget was so low, and the fact they did all this really cool stuff is phenomenal to me, because I think this is the best kind of marketed movie I've seen in a while, other than just putting trailers on YouTube and slapping a poster outside a movie theater, because that's kind of the standard.
Well, it is insane with like kind of what you're talking about, which is like, I guess what's so interesting to me is like when you're talking about a marketing budget so low and they did such creative things. It's one of those. It's the stuff that I'm like. Again, it's kind of like when we see visual effects movies, like you see Godzilla -1 and you're like, okay, this movie was done for like what, 15 million, something like that. And it's like, I'm sure that obviously costs also different. Japan, maybe there's difference in translation of budget and how that worked, but nonetheless, still, it's one of those things where when you see such high quality, but then you're also seeing like the budget's out the wazoo for some of these other movies, it's like, it's always impressive to me to be like, is it just a matter of misplaced resources? What's
Yes.
happened? Like, what's the
It's a game.
like
It's
Yeah.
a game.
'Cause
They
it's-
make the
it's a
movie
ga-
for so much money so that they can claim it all on tax, or like
for sure?
make the movie and then never release it. You know, like what happened
Yeah.
with Batgirl. Like it's that kind of shit for sure,
Yeah.
man. Like I can't.
Yeah.
I'll never get that
Like,
out of my
it's-
head from the big studios.
Oh yeah, like but it's one of those things where when you see clever marketing like this, it kind of reminds me of, I think that the Batman also had something similar where like they had the
For
whole
the Riddler, yeah.
Riddler's cipher that you could go in. If you really fell down the rabbit hole on this thing, you would kind of know a lot of stuff.
That's how they
Yeah.
released the Joker clip too. Yeah, wasn't it like you had to decipher it and then it got you a link and you could watch the Joker clip?
I think initially maybe
Yeah, they did eventually release that.
Yeah, it's available on
Like,
YouTube
out
now.
right up
YouTube.
online.
But yeah. I don't know about that though, but yeah, no, they've got like I think 5 zip archives of just recordings and images and all that stuff on that site. I'm sure someone on the internet's gone through and decided
sure.
more.
Well,
Um,
it's just one of those things where I'm like, but they had to create all that. That's the thing that's
Yeah.
like insane to me. It's more like they actually had to do this.
And another cool thing, which I noticed as well, they've put the effort into creating the files in such a way that it says last modified when you load it up on Windows or Mac, last modified in 1991. Like,
Jesus.
so,
So even
just
the metadata
small
is
things.
correct.
Yeah.
It's like looking at the
It's
website, it looks
insane.
like it's also it's not like behind the scenes footage or anything like that. They're like photos of like
No.
murders. Like they're
You know,
taken with
this
cameras from the night, like digital cameras there, and like it, there's blood splatters on the wall. It's like there's the moment in the film, Kay,
Yeah.
where me and Kay were watching it together, and it changes to the direct footage of Longlegs in the interview room. And Kay's response was, "Do not for a second make me believe that this is like real in any sense." And this is what
That
that's
was
doing.
the craziest
world
moment.
building.
Like so with my partner Allie, like she will like got me into doing
Boys.
like well fair, but god damn it, she got me into true crime and kind of the idea of like some of that stuff. And I have seen just some of this like creepy footage of people of like real investigations and shit like that. When they cut to that grainy like early digital like early 90s like video cam footage, I got so uncomfortable because it felt so real.
Yeah.
In that moment, like it's at just the perfect time in the movie. It's at just this perfect moment of like, and then the fact that they go over and do this kind of marketing campaign that's doing it reminds me of Blair Witch. Like the original Blair Witch. It reminds me of the original Psycho. Like as to Acre of Movie's point, it is like they are trying to go for a very different kind of marketing where it's like, you're gonna need to see this in order to kind of understand what the hype's about.
I've also just seen on that website, because I was having a quick scroll through as well while we were talking. They've even gotten to the point of naming other potential suspects and how that could link and how some dude was making ciphers and how it looks like Longlegs writing. Like, it's just it absolutely baffles me.
I wonder how much Osgood Perkins, like I would imagine he would have a fair amount of like involvement in it, but I'd be very curious to know like where the writing comes from, if the marketing team did all that work or did they have to go with him and be like
bloody raise, if anything.
Like listen, whoever did the marketing, whatever, I'm gonna look it up. Hold on, like marketing company behind Longlegs. Like we're gonna give these people the it's just Neon's. Like I don't know if they hired Neon was responsible for the campaign. So way to go, Neon. Good job. We want more.
It's really interesting to like looking at Screen Rant has an article on a bunch of films that did similar sort of stunts to this, like marketing stunts. And where are we? So Longlegs is ranked like number 2 on that list around like the cryptic messaging and stuff. Number 1 is the Blair Witch Project, using like real life marketing. So one of the most intensive and well-known movie marketing campaigns to date. Set in 94, films a documentary attempt by 3 film students investigating the myth of the Blair Witch in Maryland. The movie is the footage found and compiled after the student's mysterious disappearance.
You need to see this movie, Naf, at some
I've
point.
not seen it.
But
It's
the other
one of
ones
my
were,
favorites.
things like so Psycho had a strict attendance policy that they wouldn't let people into the theaters after it started if they were late. They just
We
put
mentioned
random
that on
balloons
our
around.
episode, if you remember.
Yeah. So stuff like that, it's crazy. But I think that it is really interesting what people can do when like the budget is like limited, you know? It's almost like we were talking about it before. Yeah, I feel like a lot of big studios will be quick to throw a lot of money at something and go, here, have it all, go and do everything. Then I think once something costs a lot of money, everybody wants to make sure it makes back a lot of money. So everybody has their fingers in the pie, which is a problem.
Yeah.
And the other way
$10
is
million for this kind of movie is mental. Like that's insanely low.
We talk about it a lot. Yeah, like one of the like bits here constantly is like how many of Hell or High Waters did this take to make? Because Hell or High Waters is $12 million, right? And the crazy thing watching this movie is it looks expensive. Like
this movie looks like it costs an arm and a leg.
Stunning, the film from start to finish, like visually. And yeah, like it looks so expensive, and then you pull it apart and it's like it only costs that. So what are these people doing with the other 240 million that goes into this other stuff? And you know, of course, big name actors and lots of visual effects. Like it's gonna happen, it's gonna blow.
Yeah,
it is crazy to me.
Yeah. And going further with that, Naf and Bale, like what I'm curious is, obviously, Naf, you and I watched this film together last night, and watching it, you and I had so many verbal responses to this movie, and like I kind of want to dive into that because one of the things that at least you and I found to be so effective about this movie was its tone. It's creepy from minute one. It was so funny because I had watched so the way that like my way of watching this movie was the previous night. My partner was over and we had and she had a hard day at work, so she was sleeping, and so I was using my Apple TV and I put my AirPods in and was watching this movie, and it was like again it's so late at night, and I was watching this movie with my headphones because I was like, well, I don't want to bother her. Let me just put watch headphones. Big mistake. And so the first scare happens, and I'm just like, nope, no. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. And so I watched a little bit at work, on my lunch breaks and shit like that. And I got about to 30 minutes of the movie, and then Naf calls me when I'm done with work. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just watching some more Longlegs, and he's like, well, do you want to watch it together? And so I'm like, cool, we'll do it together. And I'm only 30 minutes into the movie, so might as well. And we watched it, and we're 5 minutes in. And then all of a sudden, Naf is like, okay, how on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary is this movie? How scary is the movie? And it's getting to the shot of the girls going outside, sees the car. Yeah. And it's that moment he's like, just out of curiosity. And I know that the first jump scare is about to happen. so I was like, well, let me think about it real quick. And it's the done. And it's the shot of Nicolas Cage, the first shot you have of him, and Naf just goes, Jesus.
My long legs on today.
Yeah, it's just to hear Naf just go, Jesus, and I go, does that answer your question? And then just go and it was truly, because I remember watching that moment, I went, oh, I don't.
That's how I found out Nicolas Cage was in the movie. I didn't know he was in Longlegs. That came down. I was like, who? And then I see, and then on the starting credits goes, and Nick Cage is Longlegs. I was like, that's Nicolas Cage?
Yep.
What?
Yep. It's insane. It's insane. And that's what I think the film does so well is the film really sets you up. And I want to know both of your opinions on this, because I felt that the film, so many horror movies don't do this, where they're or they'll try really hard to get you to be like, oh, this is creepy. And Naf and I are writing a horror movie right now. We're trying to do the same thing of being how do we get people to understand from the jump this is creepy, but without being I don't know, rubbing their noses in it. You know what I mean? It's not trying to show, oh, a crow cawing in the distance, you're not trying to do the stereotypical things, you're trying to do something. And this movie just gets you from minute one. And then I was like, this is how you open a movie, because then the aspect ratio starts opening up,
Widening,
that rock
yeah.
and roll starts playing, and in between all the credits, some of these weird images start popping up.
Yeah,
and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? And I'm like, I don't know, how was it like in the theater seeing this movie? That opening happens and they just set this tone and maintain it. Like, how was that for you?
I mean, in the movie, it was because I watched it in the cinema.
Yeah, exactly.
The immersion through sound is what really kicked it in with that, but it just throws you off, because I'd make the point that nothing that really happens, like nothing inherently scary, actually happens in the movie. It's the lingering threat of it that it kind of holds over you the entire time, and then you get to the end and you're like, I mean, if I explained everything that happened on paper, it wouldn't really sound that terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, because the scariest moment of that movie for me is probably, I think it's in the first 20 minutes or so, where he's at her house, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
she goes outside and you see him in the house behind, and she doesn't see him. That kind of thing terrifies me.
Oh, yeah.
Genuinely, I had to drive home alone at night after watching that movie about 11 p.m. I was looking over my shoulder every 2 seconds. Not anyone in the back seats. Good. Keep going.
Yep.
Like,
yep. I have a door to my bathroom and then the door to my room. And the door to my bathroom was open just a little bit. And I was like, I had to shut it while we were watching the movie, just being like, I need to have warning. I can't turn and just see somebody there. I need to know.
No.
So Naf, you obviously we were watching this together. Like, your feelings on the tone? I know you and I both really were latching onto it. Give me your thoughts. Like, give the wonderful people like your Naf take on that.
Yeah, well, like really, it just like I've found that for the longest time, one of the things that I've struggled to get into film-wise, especially while I've been trying to expand my palette so much over the last, like specifically like the last 3 years, it's been a huge change. Yeah. Horror's been the hardest one for me to kind of dive into, because it's so often is associated with like particularly things like paranormal or like satanic, and I grew up in like a deeply religious like family, so there was a little hold there for a while where I was like, I don't believe in this stuff, but like maybe I still shouldn't watch movies with Satan in it just in case, you know. And these days I'm past that, but like there's so many movies that I haven't seen as a result, you know. And I also find that so much of my life was spent watching like nothing that had any kind of like gore or anything in it, that stuff is still so deeply uncomfortable to me. So horror and thrillers are so very like deeply ingrained and associated with like gore that I don't tend to, I'm not drawn towards it. Like I don't want to see it. It's going to make me like queasy, and I don't want to feel queasy when I watch
don't watch Terrifier.
I've seen them all.
Yeah.
I've seen all of them.
How have you?
Yes. So I've actually grown a lot this year.
I'm proud of you, baby. I'm proud.
No, but so what I did find is that as that evolved into, okay, like I want to make movies at some point as well, it became what if I watch this from like the student's perspective, and I just go, what am I learning from this? What can I take away from this? What can I use from this at some point? These kinds of movies became immensely interesting to me. And especially those ones that make you feel like not so much queasy, because I still don't like a lot of what's it called? Like
gore,
really gory stuff. And I think something like Terrifier, I think, is like they say they're really like really gory, but it's like silly gore, you know. Like I'm watching it and I'm like, it's not actually sawing a woman in half, right? Like it's a doll, like, you know. But like something like 127 Hours, hearing about like how the muscle and tendons he has to like take apart with a spoon or something. I'm like, no, never touching that shit. That's never
No me gusta.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, like it's like, ugh. But yeah, this kind of stuff that just has you a little uncomfortable the whole time you're watching. You kind of like don't want to sit still in your chair. Like there was a point where like I'm sitting and watching and I'm lying down on my couch, and then I'm literally like kind of holding myself up like this, like half, like what's gonna happen? I'm like, I love this feeling. It keeps you on the edge of your seat a little bit. But yeah, so in that sense, I find myself really drawn to these kinds of movies that have this kind of tone where it's a little bit uncomfortable. I feel a bit like I feel unsafe because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen next. And I feel like particularly this, hey, Johnny's in there.
Hey.
It's 4 people you love all on my celly. Is Satan in the background of one of our frames right now? Like, what's going on, dude? Like, who's the 4th?
Shit.
Is the 4th person in the room with us right now, Johnny?
He's right behind me, isn't he?
Is it the man downstairs?
No. No.
Yeah, but particularly I feel like this film does a lot for its tone and making itself creepy through the use of its cinematography, in particular, the shot selection. And
yes.
from the opening of the film, like we named today's episode, it's The Devil You Don't See. But my first go at a name for today's episode was like the power of perspective or the power of perception. Like this
yes,
the things you don't notice and the things you do, but then also like the point of view. And there's one shot in the opening that all of these things are happening and the camera is just fixed on our main character when we need to see everything else, but we're just watching her react to everything.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I mean, that's the thing. I feel like throughout this entire movie, you're isolated essentially on Agent Harker.
Yeah.
You don't. There is maybe because even like towards the end of the movie, there's the second FBI agent that I don't know entirely the relationship. I think it's the boss of her boss or
That's
like an
what I would
assistant to her
imagine,
boss.
yeah.
Something to like that. But she's in right at the very beginning, and she's in right at the very end. And I'd say she's probably still within the top 5 characters when it comes to screen time. That's what I think it does so well. It focuses perfectly, and it really gives you this isolated feeling of following Agent Harker incredibly closely. It's not like you're not focusing on several other characters. That is the central focus. The only other character we get that kind of perspective with is Longlegs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
It's wild that like the only other time I've seen something like that recently was in the Silence of the Lambs. But it happens in one shot in Silence of the Lambs. The rest of the film, it's the opposite, right? Because we get almost a POV, like in the shoes of the character, a lot of that movie. Besides the one shot where we're in the POV of like the killer watching her with like the night vision glasses. But I remember seeing that and being like, this works so well, and this being the opposite is insane. It was reminding me of I was telling Kay there's a film that I want to see called The Presence, which is entirely from the point of view of like a demon or some kind of paranormal being inside the house. But yeah, what were you going to say, Bale?
So I was going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned Silence of the Lambs. Now, I've not watched the movie personally, but I know kind of everything that happens. And that's something that I saw. I watched the Family Guy version. Okay, it counts.
Fair.
That's fair. I did that for Star Wars.
So Osgood Perkins, funnily enough, we spoke about this, and it was to do. He said that was there was a deliberate sense in that movie of drawing similarities to Silence of the Lambs, but he then wanted to subvert that with this whole kind of satanic going down that road. Apparently, that was a deliberate thing, and I when I was reading that, I was like, yeah, no, that kind of explains to me why it also divides parts of the horror community, because there's going to be people that watch this and just think, oh, it's just like Silence of the Lambs. It's like, oh, it's not like it at all. But that's the point, is it's subverting your expectations yet again and making you, it's trying to make you feel comfortable and then immediately going, no, not in this movie. Not in this movie.
Especially like the opening of being like, we're going to go knocking door to door. Everything's like, and we're going to do this like by the book. It's going to be fine. It feels like, essentially, like it feels like the opening of like Silence of the Lambs. Like it is almost beat for beat the same thing, and then you get into town and it's like, oh, that's not what's happening at all. And I'll jump to UK as well. I just want to throw one completely irrelevant point out there. I'm just reading the AMA that Osgood Perkins did, and somebody asked, just saw the film last night and enjoyed it a ton. One question: how did you arrive at the 14th birthday for the daughters? I was born on the 14th, and I realized in that moment that I was born on the 14th, and now I'm really scared that Longlegs are going to show up at my house.
There he is, the birthday boy.
Birthday boy.
It's his mother's birthday.
I don't know how, if I was his mom, I wouldn't know how to feel about that.
Not good. I
You know,
imagine.
it's kind of like I saw somebody do something. It was for Ari Aster. It was like Ari Aster's parents watching his movies, and being like, but progressively being like, he's okay, right? Like he's like
Particularly his
he's
mother.
fine.
Particularly his
Yeah,
mother.
like it was like, what did we do? Did we do something wrong? Did we like you know?
Harith, Harith was in
yeah.
chat as well. Harith said that cinematography makes you pay attention to every detail in the frame. And he also says Longlegs about to make a Naf doll. So I don't know why he'd have to make one. I'm literally already a doll.
But that's just for me. And
Well, when Naf brutally murders his family and then himself, you will at least have a Naf doll to fill his space with the film.
And coming to the One with the Film's merch store is
And also, like, Kate, we've talked about it. The doll that you have, it's very much like the Dennis doll in season 15 of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like,
yeah.
I do not approve of it, okay? I do not approve.
That's fine. That's okay.
You can't play my doll like it's a trombone, okay? Come on.
I'm just saying. It's like,
I hope
you know,
there's somebody who understands that reference. Otherwise, it's going to be really weird.
That's fair. Nonetheless, but speaking of what, you know, Harith is talking about the cinematography, and I think we can kind of wrap a lot of the points that we were going to make into this one point, but like the cinematography in this film, Naf and I were talking about, like, this was insane. Like, I love when films take such a creative route with cinematography, like in a sense that's like, it is unique, but it also doesn't, like, there are films that try to be unique with their cinematography, and it's kind of like, all right, pal, like, you know, kind of like you're kind of going out there for this, but not quite. Like, it's a little much. Like, it kind of interrupts the story for me at times.
This just in.
Yeah.
Keegan hates The Revenant.
That's not entirely false, but like
I slept through it, so it's all good.
It's honestly, The Revenant's okay, but it's pretty cool. But the thing is that, like, with this film, the thing about it is it's how they use it in the story purposes behind it. Like, I love when a film immerses you in everything, where every decision made by every department immerses you further in the story rather than away from it. And Naf and I were talking about, and I was starting to notice shit. Like, Bale, I know you want to talk about the devil in the shots, and it's devil in the details, and it's all this way there, whatever you want to put it, it's literal. And the thing that I loved was there was one moment that Naf and I actually had to go and rewind, because I was like, did you see what that was? Like, because Naf was there were moments where it was like the reflection in the window for like one of the first, when she was in the library, and I go, oh fuck that shit, because I saw the shadow. And I saw that, and Naf goes, what are you talking about? I just see the window. And I'm like, you didn't see the shadow? And Naf's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, fuck that. And then we're not rewinding for that shit. And then we go further, and then there's the shot in the kitchen where she's like in there, and the bug is crawling out, and you see the horns. I freaked out, because I love that kind of shit. I love, especially when horror directors use that as like a way of portraying your senses.
Yeah, and it's funny you mention this, because I watched it yesterday with funnily enough Harith, who's in the chat now. The first time the devil pops up, right, it's in the it's when she's in one of the kind of brown wooden FBI rooms. She's looking at stuff on the floor, and next to the flagpole, he's just stood there for like 3 seconds, 2 seconds, something like that. And I immediately go to him, look in the corner, look in the corner, look in the corner. And he's like, oh my God, okay, what the fuck? And I'm like, yep, you wouldn't have noticed that.
Yep. Yeah. And so, like, with that, I guess I want to talk with you, like, you, Naf, like, obviously we were watching this together, so I know some of your reactions, but for those who weren't there for this glorious reaction, like how did you feel about using, like, I know you love cinematography. It's one of your favorite things about like a good Nafcore movie has great cinematography. And so tell me more about like your feelings with this, the details, everything, how they handled it, please.
It got down to a point where, like, I'd almost been gaslit by the film into being scared of the background. That there was a shot where it's just before that scene you were talking about, Bale, that scariest one where she goes outside because she sees the shadow outside. She goes out, he's inside. Just before then, she is sitting in a room, and she's like right in the middle at the front of the frame, and in the background just like an open door. And I'm just waiting for someone to walk in the background.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
After he comes in, And she goes back into the house and she says, it's that same shot again. And I'm like, I'm already fucking uncomfortable. Someone's coming in here. No. So it's stuff like
and
that.
now we know somebody is in here. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like it's
Naf, to make you extra uncomfortable, did you notice that the devil was over her shoulder in one of those shots?
Yes, I did. Like, it got to the point where like it was the last, I think it was the kind of the second last point where she gets to meet her boss and she's sitting in his office, and I was telling Kay, I was like, I'm now uncomfortable to the point that like the coat rack in the corner feels like a person standing over her, you know, and like she's standing and just in the corner there's a coat rack and it feels like my eyes being drawn to that, like who's over there, you know. And so all these little moments that just freaked me out. And yeah, Harris was saying he's just standing there menacingly, like it's all of and like I was so happy with how the thumbnail came out for this episode. And I took that shot from the movie and just, you know,
one of the scary. Also, Naf and I were talking about that was one of the scariest shots I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which just, again, it's just a pause TV, but like the meaning behind it is so scary.
Yeah.
And it's just like him, you know, laughing, and I'm just like, I am so uncomfortable right now.
And it's like, yeah, it's the devil in the details, as you were saying, Bale. And it's not just like the devil, right? It's like these things that aren't outwardly expressed, but like kind of we see in the movie. Like the first one is it's 2 points that stood out to me, and I was like, holy shit, like what the hell, you know? Like she's in the house and there's a little creature that comes out from under the it's all locked, and we're like, okay, whatever, that's, I don't know what that is. The mum's a hoarder, like it's just the gross room, who knows, whatever. But it's the iconography as well, that little thing that Longlegs has hanging from his rearview mirror in the car and driving with it, and then that exact same shot of her driving his car afterwards. And it's like the realization, like when she wakes up at the end in that room, I'm like, oh, she's been taken to like his place, and it's like, nope, that's her house that she grew up in. He's been living downstairs in her house. He's the man downstairs. And it's like, she has no idea. She had no idea he'd been there the whole time. When she went to visit her mum, he was probably there.
That goes back to kind of what I wanted to talk about with the devil in the details, not being literally just the devil. So there are a couple of, there's one thing, and this might be me latching onto things because I know the end of the movie when I rewatched the movie, but when she calls her mum in the FBI, and this was after Longlegs visited her and gave her that note and letter, right? She rings her and she's talking with her mum, and when it's clear it's her, there's silence, and then there's like a bit of interference on her mum's side of the phone when she's talking to her. And upon rewatching, I was like, oh shit, that's probably fucking him either listening or going, fuck she's saying? Like, something like that. Like,
right.
Again, may well be looking far too into something, but that's how I kind of interpret it the second time round.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would make sense. Like, she knows that something's there. It's kind of like this idea of being like, I don't know, even to the Silence of the Lambs comparison, it's kind of like Buffalo Bill being like, so did they do they have any leads? Do they have anything there? Where it's like, he's trying to goad information out of her because he knows he's the one that they're looking for. So it's kind of like, again, it's like strategy, like trying to play dumb a little with that, like, but yeah, that, like, I agree. But Naf, you had something you were gonna say.
Well, I was just gonna say that, like, on that one, it, like, when she's on the phone to her mum the first time she's in the house, she leaves her mum to go, so she kind of sees someone, and that's when he's like in her house. So I wonder if it's even like that, maybe if he was listening to the conversation, maybe he's not listening from her mum's house, but listening from, like, you know, the calls coming from inside the house kind of vibe.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, like that was all. But there are so many little things like that just, and it's funny, you know, like the first moment in the film, I'll try and say it without saying like a direct spoiler for it, but that the introduction to the like the chief's family and the invitation to the birthday, like it started. And I said to Kay exactly how the end was going to play out at the second that, because like, you come to my birthday, I was like, this is going to happen. And
birthday murders, birthday party at the end of the movie.
You know what I'm curious
so
on, though?
Scary.
What do you guys think about when she wakes up and the phone is ringing and she picks up the phone and the phone says, "You're late for the birthday party"? What do you think that was?
devil.
Oh,
Like actually Satan called her to tell her to go.
That's the only thing, and that goes into actually something funny that I said. I saw that Osgood Perkins talked about specifically about the ending of the movie of the she's trying to shoot the doll, right? And she just keeps firing. It keeps clicking and clicking and clicking. And I read the director's commentary on that, and it's like, well, the devil had already won. Like that was it. The damage is done. He's won. He's won on a small scale. He's had his victory again. So he always wins in the end. That was the kind of the commentary on that. And that's how I think that ties in. And also that was the very, what you guys may have noticed about the double shots. He gets clearer throughout the movie, his outline. And in that last one, it's when Agent Sterling shuts the door as he lets Agent Harker into the house, and there's a reflection in the door, and it is a perfect silhouette. It's impeccable. So that to me suggests that it is just the devil calling. But that's not something I even really noticed until I rewatched the movie. I was like, oh shit, yeah, who would be calling her? And that's
like, again, it's this kind of interesting thing of the game that's being played, and it is really refreshing to hear that like Osgood Perkins was taking the horror community kind of on a ride, being like, we are expecting you to have seen Silence of the Lambs. We know that this is a trope. We know that there are a lot of tropes here, but again, what if we take it a step further? Because I've always been interested, even in a game that I run, like for my home D&D game, one of the arcs was like, my thought process was, it's so interesting with the devil made me do it thing with some serial killers. And I was like, obviously, like for a lot of intents and purposes, a lot of people believe that just to be mental illness, like a lawyer's dodge, whatever you want to call it, like an excuse. But I always was like, okay, but what if there was some truth to it? What if there was like because no one would believe them, like no one would believe that that's actually true. And that's just terrifying to me. And that's what, when I saw where this film was going, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like this movie. Like this. Oh yeah. And so with that said, Bale, and I think that we're getting, I know, a little close to time for us. Like I want to kind of go into some of the sound design you really wanted to nail down, talk about this. And then Naf, I think if you want to talk about some editing impartial with that.
Sure.
But
there was one small thing that I did just recall about the devil in the details. Notice that Longlegs says cuckoo a lot.
Yes.
That foreshadows perfectly what he did to the Harkers, in that he went into, he was a parasite in their home. So I did have to Google this again because I forgot the specific wording. It's reference to the behavior of cuckoo birds who lay the birds in other birds' nests, essentially taking over the nest and tricking the host of the birds into raising their young.
Oh,
that first scene where he just goes cuckoo perfectly foreshadows his behavior, which is kind of nuts.
It is insane, because this movie, it is a movie that, like, you think you know where it's going to some degree, and then it just continues to fucking throw you for
your
a loop.
Expectations.
Like there's like I dare you, without looking up this plot, to like go and watch this movie and think and try to predict it all the way through. Like it is truly a film that just I don't think you can. Like, and for better or for worse, like obviously, as you said, it's and kind of like any really good film, it will be divisive a bit. Where it's like, if you please everybody, you kind of please nobody. You know what I mean? Like,
it's one of those films that, like, people say, my favorite thing that the writer director of American Fiction said when he was nominated for and like won his Oscar is like, rather than making one $250 million film, you got to make 25 $10 million films, and you got to be ready for half of them to fail and half of them to do well. But we're so caught up in a world where people want like so risk averse, you know, that particularly studios are so risk averse that, like, you know, they want to use AI to save money or all these kinds of things to try and cover their own ass, rather than going, I want to sink this amount of money to something that could fail. Like, this could have been an epic fail, you know? Sure. And things like this happen and all the time. One other thing I just saw,
we look at it with Everything Everywhere, things like that. Like it's again, when people, as you said, when people invest in the 25 million, it's like it's a good range for film. It's a really good range.
Yeah. I saw on the AMA with the director as well. There was a thing here where he says, where was it? Basically, people were like, "Oh, do you reckon that before he was Longlegs and he was like this kind of like rock god or whatever, Here we go. Great movie. Did Dale Cobble have any bandmates before he was Longlegs? If so, what happened to them? The director replied back with, they went on to form NSYNC. And I think that's the funniest.
That's pretty iconic.
I could see Justin Timberlake and Longlegs having been in a band together. I said it.
There always was that. Like, my friend pitched me this. That this is just a weird side note. About Maroon 5 being like, oh, I like saying like his joking conspiracy theory of being like, I think Maroon 5 made a deal with the devil, being like they are popular, but they're no one's favorite band. Being like that, like this idea of like they are there, they make good songs that end up on billboards and things like that, like are there, but they're not number one. So they'll like they'll get there, they'll probably be nominated for Grammys or things like that, but they'll never really win. And it's like it's that kind of like monkey paw thing.
They actually were. I'm not even kidding. They were. Songs About Jane was like my #1 album when I was like 10.
So we have the one.
We have the
Miguel,
one.
we have the one.
Now, that being said, I have
are.
also seen the movie once, directed by John Carney, and I cannot ever look at that piece of shit in the face again. I hate it.
Oh yeah, because once has Adam Levine, obviously. Yeah. And so you mean Begin Again now?
That's the one. My bad. Hey, dude, come on. It's 5:04 a.m. Come on.
No excuse. Now, and so, but nonetheless, Bale, why don't you talk about the sound a bit? Let's talk about the sound design.
So I think that this kind of really nails everything in the movie, and specifically in a movie theater kind of like environment. There's no backing tracks. Like there's no ambient noise really. It's just silence, and then very basic kind of horror noises. It's very minimalistic. Yet it works. Like right at the beginning of the movie, the little girl in the snow, bum, 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 and then all of a sudden, Longlegs, and then he drops down. You see his face for a second, and then high-pitched screeching title card. Perfect tone setter for the movie, and then it's just subtle in the background, kind of itching at you. There's not really anything. I feel like it just merged perfectly with the way they shot it.
Yes,
and it was good at building anticipation and setting you on edge, because I think having a lot of hustle and bustle in a movie, especially in something like horror, would distract you from it. There's nothing to distract from here. It's either silence or it's sound trying to set you on edge. It's never anything calming or relaxing. It's all just silence. There's very, very little just backing music for the movie, which I think just works perfectly. And it really prolongs that kind of sense of isolation with Harker specifically.
It's wild, like to your point, that it was about like halfway through the film that the score starts feeling very, very prominent. I remember like going over to Ken and going like, is this like the first time they've used the score in the film? And he's like, no, like we've had like stuff here. And I was like, no, you're right. But to your point, Bale, it's like it's so
it's
like
sparse.
deeply ingrained into what you're watching that it kind of falls away. You know, it's not over the top. You know, like, and to tie into like the editing side of things, it's like it often is the music is coming with like a cut. Or the insert of like, 1 to 4 frames of something in between, that we're getting those kinds of sounds that come in. So it does feel very like organic or seamless, the use of sound.
Yes.
I think it ties perfectly into like the edit.
And again, watching that in a movie theater, because everyone in there's quiet. There's no cinema kind of etiquette. You don't talk during the movie. Made it horrifying in this one. Absolutely horrifying. I spent half that movie going like this, behind my hands, going, jump scare, jump. Oh fuck.
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking with Naf about the very end of the movie, because the whole thing happens and you're hearing the click, and then it's going into Nick Cage's birthday, and I was convinced there was going to be one final jump scare at the very end of the movie. I was convinced. I was like, no, because they're making you listen to the happy birthday song and just going like, this lilting, thing there, and you're just like being taunted by the movie, and then it's just,
and it just ends with them going, "Hail Satan."
Yeah, like, which is just such a funny. It's so surreal, but and you're just
goofy.
like, it's almost goofy, and you're like, no, this is not the time, this is not the vibe. We're not doing this. And again, even to Naf's point, what like, and to wrap up, like one of the things editing wise and structure wise, story wise, that I thought was really interesting is like the beginning when like that FBI agent just straight up gets shot.
Yeah,
like to me that shocked the shit out of me when I was watching. I was like, because it's like the way I put it to Naf was, I'm like, and I'll be honest, like when I was watching it alone for the first 30 minutes by myself, I was like, this is such a weirdly structured movie. Like this, they're almost starting with the Silence of the Lambs ending.
That has also just very quickly reminded me of another kind of devil in the detail there. If you remember at that movie that I have in that briefing, right? And he's, like, he's not likely to come quietly. He shoots a guy in the head, and then all of a sudden he's sat on the bed with all his possessions lying out with his hands up behind his back. Now, my theory here is he's an agent of the devil of some respect, and he's not allowed to touch it because of the deal that his mum made. And also, a lot of people have pointed at the position of his hands being almost like a triangle. That again, maybe you're looking too much into it, but I thought it was worth bringing up on here.
Yeah.
Like because he I mean, definitely seems like an agent of, like, again, the accomplice idea of being like. Because also it's like you go into that house and that house is covered in like the wrapping and everything there. And it's like it is, there is a certain sense of this. It's either that or that was just completely tangential to everything else. And it's just so funny just being this guy that's just like, nah, this is again. I don't know what's like kind of darkly funnier if like, oh, that was unrelated. I exercise my Second Amendment right and just being like, like I don't know, like, but at the same time, it's like it's insane. But like just that movie, the way that it begins just throws you off so completely because you're like, what the fuck? I can't get attached to anybody.
I think the only official thing I could see about it was the director's commentary of being it's meant to show that she has this weird intuition,
which
like,
makes sense.
It's that house. And that's kind of, otherwise I think originally it was going to begin with her in the FBI room going, what's this? Guess
for sure.
And that would be a weird way to open it. But I think that, that was,
and it does a great job at establishing that. And then the scene that follows it does a follow-up to that really well.
Well, that's what I was going to add in too. It almost felt like when we go from her finding the guy to the next scenes of her being in the room and them asking the questions and trying to figure out what's her deal here. It almost felt like that was a flashback and we had just seen the end of the film. And I was trying to figure out the structure of it a little bit, going like, all right, what's happening here? And then she kind of comes out and they're like, oh, partially psychic, like I'll take it, whatever, like we'll move. I was like, okay, that's kind of how we're going here. But it is, and to that, there's one really, really cool visual effect in the film towards the end, and it's when she finds the doll of herself and the mum has the shotgun and shoots it. And kind of destroys the little, the bowl in there that kind of houses whatever. And there is almost this being or presence that leaves her. And you see it kind of happen, she's like, oh, and then like this dark.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of smoke.
And I was like, whoa. And then she falls over. Like, I thought that was so cool. Harith also said in chat that he doesn't want to imagine watching this in a Dolby cinema. I watched a version of this film with Dolby Atmos in my living room, and as it started, I was telling Kay, I was like, man, I don't know what's going on in my fucking rear speakers right now, dude, but like,
I don't like it.
I don't like it. And Marley also says there's nothing creepier than someone singing Happy Birthday. Yeah, like,
agreed.
It's wild. I hear that. It's wild. Yeah. But do either of you guys have any sort of like final thoughts on the film you want to share before we wrap up?
I'm glad I didn't see this in a cinema. Is my thought. like not in a way of don't go support cinemas, but more I would be a nuisance within the cinema, and I would make this film 10 times scarier than it actually was.
I think. Yeah, the only closing point I have is essentially that watching in the cinema was terrifying, and genuinely, this is the first horror film I've ever watched that shit me up. Like for several nights, I was just like, I'm gonna just flash the torch around the room, just for a second.
I'd be
sanity,
just to clear it up.
Yeah, there could be something at the end of the bed staring over me with a knife. I want to just double check that. Good. We're going to bed now. Okay.
I went for a nap before this, right? I went to bed at like 1 a.m. and I was like, I'll just have like an hour and a bit nap and I'll get up. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have the like lights on just like a little bit,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. My leg was like hanging off the bed for a bit and I was like, ha 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 ha. It's not like anybody's going to grab it. I'm going to tuck it away.
You took your long legs off.
Oh, oh my
It's
God.
nice and long. Naf
Ooh.
doesn't have long legs.
Well, like
And just,
I could have long legs, and you know what I would get for that?
what?
I said I could have long legs, and if I went through that
No,
process,
no.
you know what I would get? I would get Medicare. Okay, so they would cover it for me. I would have to pay $4 million for my medical. Okay, shut up. Don't get sick. Anyway, I think this was a fantastic recommendation, Bale. I'm really, really happy with this. So you did a great job, dude. Thank you very much for it.
Well done. Absolutely. Well, with that said, boys, we always love to wrap up with a little game of cinema a la carte. As a reminder, this is where we really get to show you the best way to experience this film through the metaphor of, well, food. We have each prepared a menu of our own this week, as with the film as the main course, along with an entree to start, a wine to pair, and a dessert to complete your journey. And you get to decide which set menu you love the most. So please let us know in the comments. And without further ado, Naf, would you like to present our chef special?
Yes, sir. I'm just pulling mine up, and this my little menu, my tasting dish, is just called "This Gave Me the Heebies," and yeah. So we're gonna kick off with our entree. Okay, now entree has lots and lots of like kind of earthy undertones. It's a little bit like Alien, you know. It's a little weird to kind of what you would anticipate, especially when you look at it at the start, right? You look at the dish and you go, "I know what this is gonna taste like." You start eating it and you go, "That didn't taste like what I expected at all." And it's Alex Garland's Annihilation. That's where we start this bitch. Have you seen that, Bale?
I have not.
I forgot you haven't seen any movies. My bad.
No, I've not seen that stuff.
Then we get into our main course, our meaty main course, Longlegs. And we're pairing that with a wonderful wine from Australia, actually, from New South Wales. This wine is called Talk to Me. It's a horror film that came out 2023, and it is fucking awesome. And what we're going to do is for dessert, we're going to end it with a little bit of Robert Eggers. We're going to end it with The Witch, and it's going to take us through everything. I think also in terms of dessert, wonderful. If you feel like, you know, you want maybe just a little bit more like gore and a little bit more Satan, I suppose, than this has. The Witch does that a little bit, you know, at a certain point, like a baby may be turned into some kind of pudding and like rubbed on the naked body of a geriatric woman. Like it's a thing.
It's true.
Eggers is cooking, man. He's cooking, and there's a goat in there. So like there's horns. There's lots of symbolism.
Goat is in literal or
watch the movie, baby. Watch the movie. No, LeBron James is right there.
The answer is yes. And so
yeah, so that's my
so
my
now,
three.
You want to run that back?
Yeah, that's it. So it's films that give me the heebies. Sorry, it's these films gave me the heebies. We got Annihilation, then we go into Longlegs paired with Talk to Me, and we finish with Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, Bale.
All
do you
right,
want to give it a crack?
Bale, hit us with it.
Oh, so I'll be completely honest, lads. This was a bit difficult for me because I wasn't really sure of how to pair it. So one of these films I haven't seen, but I really want to, and I've heard lots of good things. And I'm going to use that as my drink, right? And two are from the same franchise, but my interest in this franchise was kicked up by Longlegs. So as a starter, I'm going to hit with the original Alien. You got that mysterious kind of suspense thing. It's warming you up for Longlegs, you know. And then for my main, I've gone with, well, of course, Longlegs. Now, the drink, I'll be completely honest, I forgot I had a drink. So I've chosen,
most often do. And so
I've chosen to pair this with a film that I think I'm seeing this later this evening, Nosferatu, because I really want to see it, and it strikes me as a mystery and a bit horror-y. So
honestly, you know, also that's a good pairing. That's a good pairing.
Nosferatu was originally on mine, and I swapped it for The Witch. So like, but it's
Robert Eggers.
Yeah, bro, that's it.
My man cooks.
Yeah, well, that's what I've heard. So yeah, I thought I'd pair it with Nosferatu, even though I haven't seen it, but I've heard lots of very, very good things. Yeah. And then dessert, again, going back to Alien Romulus, because again, that was kind of what kickstarted my interest in it all. Was watching Longlegs and wanting to kind of go into horror a bit, but I thought Romulus was a bit more of a kind of horror-y,
much
kind
more,
of,
yeah.
than the original Alien, but still had that kind of suspense and mystery behind it. So yeah, in summary, started with Alien, main of Longlegs with paired nicely with Nosferatu, and then dessert Alien Romulus.
Hell yeah.
Good one there. Good one there.
I love it.
Thank you for warming me up, boys.
I love the choice of Alien, the first one as well. I feel like that suits so nicely because you just have your main character, woman, kind of like being stalked by a monster, which like it's very thematically
it's
relevant.
Yeah.
You did really well, dude. Like really good picks.
Well, and also and Romulus kind of also being that kind of modern follow-up in a way that kind of improves, but also like pays homage.
Romulus, I could talk about Romulus for years. It's such a great movie. Yeah.
And so mine is I lovingly called it a good helping of hell no. And these are all movies that made me go, fuck this shit. Why do I watch movies? And going and questioning my life choices. So for an appetizer, we're going to start off with a film that's very raw, a film that's like practically just like served to you on a plate with the meal, like kind of just straight out of the packaging. It's just a slab of meat on a plate. But it's one that had been very cleverly marketed and actually mentioned on this podcast already earlier and talked about longer than I was expecting it to be. We're going to go with an appetizer of the Blair Witch Project. This was the first horror movie that there was a point when I was younger that I actually was really getting into horror, and I was really like, oh, I'm super down. I like this feeling. I like this idea. I saw this movie and I was like, I could take a break and just going, and so it's still one of my favorite horror movies to this day. Still think that it's probably the scariest, and the marketing only made it scarier for an autistic kid who believed pretty much what he was told. And I thought this movie was real for an uncomfortably long amount of time. And then it wasn't until my mom looked up some details that was like, oh yeah, the person who started this didn't know how to hold a camera. They had to teach her. And so I was like, oh, well, there we go. That ruins my immersion. But nonetheless, my main course is obviously Longlegs, a nice, hearty, meaty dish. And this is followed with a wine that was so good that I couldn't finish it. And that is the wine of Hereditary. I thought that Hereditary was so well done because I was similarly to Blair Witch. I was going on a horror kick. And I was like, okay, people have talked a lot of good shit about Hereditary. Let me finally like sit down and watch it. And I was watching it, and for like it wasn't until about like I think I got through a third of it, and all of a sudden just Toni Collette's performance was just so raw and real that it triggered my own PTSD around grief. And I literally went, nothing has done this to me. Well done, Ari Aster. I cannot finish. I will probably at some point go back and finish this movie. But up to that point, I was like, you know what? I don't need this right now. So this is the first of me putting a film that I have not finished on my watch list, but I'm like, this is still going with the theme of I said hell no so hard that I stopped. And I just and then for dessert comes one of my favorite movies. It's probably number one on the films that I love to death but will never watch again. Is Killing of a Sacred Deer. With Barry Keoghan. It's Yorgos Lanthimos, his film right after The Lobster.
Heard so many people say this. Like,
it's so good, and Barry Keoghan is fucking terrifying in the movie. And he is just, it was the first thing that I had ever seen him in. And then I saw Dunkirk, and it kind of ruined a bit of Dunkirk to me because I'm like, don't trust that kid. Don't trust that kid. Cillian Murphy pushes him down. He goes blind. Okay, good. Now the kid can't do any harm. And I'm just like, but nonetheless, I saw that movie at Cannes and I couldn't leave the theater. It was one of the funniest moments because the guy I was seeing it with was super excited to see it. And I just happened to get a ticket because you have to get like a accreditation. You have to actually kind of fight for these tickets. And I got it, and I was sitting there with him, and the lights were about to go down, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm really excited. I didn't see the lobster. I don't know what I'm in for. He said, wait a minute, you didn't see the lobster? I'm like, yeah. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really a horror person. But the guy kind of goes, oh no, and the lights went down. It's just like I was just like, what do you mean, oh no? It's just kind of like, and then I had to sit through this entire
What do you
thing.
mean by that?
And it was the funniest way to go. And then I had to go on with my day. This was a morning screening, and I had to like live with this film for the rest of the day. So to go with it again, the theme is a good helping of hell no. We start with the Blair Witch Project, follow it up with Longlegs, paired with Hereditary, and finish it up with Killing of a Sacred Deer. And if you don't want to like stop your night halfway through this meal, then I don't know what to tell you. And just be, and so
you reminded me as you were saying that with the like when you went to watch it in the theaters, it reminded me of when I was at MIF earlier this year. Me and one of my best friends, Aaron, we basically watch all of our new movies together. We went to MIF, and one of the ones that I got him to watch was like Cuckoo, and with Hunter Schafer. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, this is like looks kind of cool, like might be like a little freaky, like I don't know. He's like, yeah, whatever, I'll go. And he's not horror like at all. And like poor dude was sitting next to me, and it's like the scariest movie ever. It's like a little bit more like the kind of creepy and stuff. It's fun. It's fun. I liked it, but yeah, it was like a first for him in the theaters, and I felt so bad afterwards. Like you should have looked it up, dude, and said no. You could have said no. But yeah, that basically takes us through our episode today. Guys, Kate, do you want to take us out?
absolutely. Well, my name is Kay. You can find me at Movie Man Opinions, as well as just on all the socials. And thank you again to all our listeners. Obviously, we had a lot of you guys in the chat today, and we're very excited to have you. Always a pleasure to see our little crew forming over here. But Naf, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Seen by Naf on all socials as well. And yeah, no, we definitely that seems like a popular movie choice as well. We've got a little bit more traction this week than we usually do, and a couple of new subscribers as well. So thank you so much, guys, for following along. Yeah, what about you, Bale? Where can people find you? What can they expect to find if they do?
Well, I can be found on TikTok, Instagram, Twitch. I think I'm on Threads. I just don't really use it. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been pretty quiet on content, but usually just talking about pop culture kind of stuff. Twitch, obviously, more on the gamey side of things. But yeah, just on the internet is kind of the way I can summarize my activity.
Yes, absolutely. And Bale is a great follow. Obviously, we've met up in person. Like we've been lucky enough to meet up in person several times, and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And give all the follows, all the love. I know that most of y'all, if you're listening to us, probably already follow him, but nonetheless, like if you don't, do so.
We were talking the other day, Bale, about like Japan and like whether that might plan. And you were saying obviously that this isn't something that's kind of in the cards for you this year. Weirdest thing that I remembered when I got on chat with you today is I was like, after that conversation, like I had a dream that night that you mentioned I'd be like, nah, I changed my mind, fuck it, like I'm going, I'm gonna be there. I was like, sick. And then I woke up and I was like, nah. The next one.
Absolutely.
Next one, absolutely. Yeah.
And as a final reminder that you can find all the links to our individual pages on the description below. And there's even a Google form you can fill out if you have a specific creator or film that you'd love to see on the podcast. You can also find one with the films on Instagram, TikTok, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. But for now, as promised, our next and final guest for season 3. Well, it's me. And guess what? We are watching, and I told Naf it was between the two films that I was trying to go for, and I was trying to see if I could go with one with the filmy, but I want to give everybody else a chance. I'm going to go with one of my favorite films that it really defined me as a filmmaker early on. And Naf, have you seen any Clint Eastwood movies?
I've seen films he's directed, and by that I mean I saw American Sniper.
So you've seen, okay. Well, this will be a good education for you. We're gonna watch Clint Eastwood's ultimate Western that he ever did, Unforgiven. And so if you want to see Naf go down the spaghetti Western rabbit hole, you're gonna, because Naf, as many of our listeners know, will find one film and be like, okay, I watched this one movie, but to feel like I have an understanding of it, I'm going to watch every film that's ever existed under this genre.
Yes.
And so nonetheless, we're going to be doing Clint Eastwood's
I like to come
Best
in
Picture
well
winner.
informed, okay? Like,
and it's great, and I love you for it. I say this with love and jealousy. And nonetheless, we're going to be watching Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven in 2 weeks' time.
Hell yeah.
So we'll see you here.
I saw like earlier this year they put a lot of the Kurosawa films back in theaters. And I saw a bunch of his, like I saw Yojimbo, and I know that they're some of the ones that were adapted by Sergio Leone into Clint Eastwood films as well. So like I want to watch those beforehand to see if I can get basically a little bit of a handle on it. But yeah,
I would recommend watch, and to all people, you have 2 weeks time. I would recommend before you watch Unforgiven, because I think that part of Unforgiven's real appeal is if you understand Clint Eastwood's filmography sort of up until then. So I would recommend catching like Outlaw Josie Wales, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like some of these other ones where you can kind of see a very different type of Western, because Unforgiven really changed the game with regards to it. But nonetheless, very excited to watch that film. And without further ado, everybody, we love you, and we'll see you.
Catch you next time.